What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got another edition of The Drive-In, where I watch recently released films and tell you guys whether they're worth watching, worth waiting for, or worth skipping altogether. I'm going to jump right into it. You guys know what it is. I just got back from the theater to see Scream 6, my most anticipated film of the entire year. Man, I'm dealing with, I just had dental procedure this morning, so if I'm a little bit janky in my verbiage, my mouth's a little sore, I apologize, but I wanted to bring you guys my Scream 6 review as soon as I got back from the theater. I just got home. It is near midnight here on Thursday night, March 9th. Scream 6 review, here we go. There was a lot talking about this movie coming in, with Sidney not being involved because of the pay disputes, and the return of Kirby, the legacy character from Scream 4, and this being kind of the second in the new potential trilogy for Radio Silence. There's a lot of hype coming into this movie, and I'm going to tell you guys if it is worth checking out overall or not. Let's get into all of it here. This movie is written by James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette, known as Radio Silence, and this stars Melissa Barrera as Sam, Jenna Ortega as Tara, Courtney Cox as Gail, and the returning Hayden Panettiere as Kirby. And to get into this right away, no spoilers. It's a brand new movie. Don't spoil it in the comments, please. I'm keeping this spoiler-free, but I do want to get into the minutia and talk about all the things that worked and didn't work. And I gotta say, for me, the number one positive right away is what I call Core 4. If you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. The four main characters that return back from the last movie, and that is Sam and Tara, the two sisters, as well as Randy's two children from the first movie, from Scream 5, from the last movie. These four characters come back, and they are now in New York City, as the trailer has told us. Location change for the first time. I was nervous about that. I gotta say, I really enjoyed the fleshing out of the Core 4. Their friendships. A lot of the positives you're going to hear me talk about from this movie come from the characters and story progressions. Everything felt like the characters were well fleshed out, and it felt like the story progressed every time. I love the Core 4 relationships. You see a lot of things unveiling, and I'll get into those as we go along, but I love seeing the relationship between the sister bond, which is a big positive for me. The bond between Sam and Tara becomes more and more galvanized here. There's reasons why it splinters, and reasons why it works out together very well. I love what these two do together. The sister bond is the biggest positive, I think, of the new characters in the last movie, and I think it's even more positive now because, again, there's reasons why it's splintered and reasons why it works, and these are two badass girls. Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are really, really good new characters. They gel together well, they blend with the whole cast well, and they are two strong new final girls that make the blow of the legacy characters not being around as much feel softer. If we didn't have these kind of girls being the final girls, these two strong characters with chemistry and acting ability that shines in this movie, then it would be a big blow. Not having one of the legacy characters who died in the last movie, and then not having Sidney in this movie, this would be a big, big blow if we didn't have the two strong final girls we have. And Randy's kids, the twins, are also very strong in this movie, and they get more time to kind of unveil their relationships and use their dialogue and have their chemistry. And anytime these four characters are together, there's good moments of tension, they feel strong, they trust each other, the dialogue is good, there's some good moments of comedy. I like these four characters together, and they are the backbone of the new Scream franchise going forward. No matter how long this franchise goes forward, I really, really like these four being around. I hope they stay around, and I won't spoil anything about what happens in this movie. The next big positive, Sam's duality. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but we saw in the last movie, those of you guys that saw Scream 5, if you didn't, I don't know why you're here. We saw in Scream 5 that Sam, and again, spoilers for Scream 5, but Sam was seeing Billy in flashbacks, and she was battling the fact that her father was a psycho killer. And Billy was kind of still giving her psycho messages and feedback and in the flashbacks, but also kind of defending his daughter and kind of encouraging the violence, but also doing it in a protective way in a way. So Billy's kind of retroactively a good guy, but he's still the same bad guy he always was. He's still a killer. So we saw that duality in Sam. People talked about Jenna Ortega as Tara being so strong in the last movie, and Sam not living up to that. People were saying Melissa Barrera wasn't a strong actress. She puts no doubt in my mind in this movie. I liked her in the last one, but I could see certain moments where I was like, I can see the crowd not liking her as much. I was a fan, but not everyone was. In this movie, I think everyone has to like what Sam does. She is the strongest, maybe, character in the entire movie. In a movie of strong characters, Sam really comes to play when it comes to the duality. You know, I'm not spoiling anything here, but we saw in the last movie how she battled the ideas of being a survivor versus being a killer, and having to nurture your violent side to survive and vice versa. And we get a lot more of that in this movie. Anytime we're going to get a progression of storylines and we're going to get characters that have multiple layers and multiple rationales and reasonings, you're going to get a positive from me. And this movie does that very, very well. The progression of Sam and the back and forth inner workings of Sam mentally and Sam's thought processes are very strong, dramatic moments in this movie. And I think Sam's drama in general, as she gets close to people, as she loses people, as she gains new people, watching her thought processes are very strong, and taking nothing away from the other characters in this movie, because I think Courtney Cox does a great job. I think Hayden Panettiere does a wonderful job. I think Randy's children do a good job, and I think Jenna Ortega is, as always, a favorite of mine. I love Jenna Ortega in this. She's great, but Sam, Melissa Barrera, really brings power that I think will silence the doubters to a bit. So overall, characters and acting in this movie, I think, are wonderful. This has probably the best overall set of characters in terms of the entire universe, probably since the first movie. The characters in this are really strong because you get a nice mix of the OG characters and the new characters, and it feels like nearly everyone, minus a couple of brand new people, but nearly everyone feels very fleshed out. And even whenever there are thin characters, they explain that. They use the meta stuff and the self-referential diatribes to explain some of the thin characters. So I really enjoyed the characters in this movie, and they all battle for screen time and battle for attention in positive ways. They make you laugh, they make you smile, they make you have chills. You watch them in this battle, and they all feel like individual stars, but also have good team moments in this movie. The location, I give this a +/-. It did not take away like I thought it would. Moving Scream out of Woodsboro made me so afraid because they were going to New York, and I went, oh my God, Jason Takes Manhattan, here we go. They're going to poke fun at New York, and it's going to all be about New York City. I don't think it detracted from Scream. I will say, and I'll get into this with the negatives, but early on, it didn't really feel like a Scream film to me. The dialogue did, and some of the angles did, but I feel like, and the setting and the acting and stuff in general, for a little bit at the beginning of the movie, didn't feel like a Scream movie, and I went, oh, this is going to be the one that changes the formula in a negative way and takes you out of the Scream aspect of the movie, and it didn't. It started off a little weak on that aspect, but I think overall, this still felt like Scream. It still felt like the location was used for some good background shots, and we get some good lighting and some good unique buildings and stuff like that. Some good isolating locations later in the movie. The houses and stuff were well used, but it didn't take away from the movie, in my opinion, like I thought it would. That was my biggest, most nervous talking point coming into the movie, and I really thought it was pretty ambivalent. It was more positive than negative, so I'm proud of the fact that New York did not turn into just one big inside joke. They didn't waste the location by just using it as comic fodder, is what I will say. Again, progression was wonderful in this. We see the progression of the sisters. We see Randy's kids. We see how everyone has dealt with the killings in the last movie. We see how Sam is kind of being labeled. We see the duality of Sam's character. We see Jenna Ortega being at times overprotected and battling for her own maturity and freedom and making some choices, both good and bad. We see some new love interests that make sense to me and have nice chemistry and connections. We see characters from the last movie try and find love in different places, and that makes sense to me. And they're wise about it. They poke fun at what they're doing, but they also are people that have to move on with their lives. So a lot of times in sequels, you don't get to see the old characters, and you don't feel like their progressions, when you do see them, feel natural. The progressions in this movie feel like some of the best. Aside from the original characters, I'm talking about the main three, right? Sidney, Dewey, and Gale from the first few movies. What made the first few sequels so good was that you saw Sidney and Gale and Dewey and how they progressed in each movie, and they got more untrustworthy, and they got more worn, and they got more ego-driven, and all of these things. And you see that in this movie. Every character's progression feels like a natural progression to me, and that is missing in most sequels. You even see things from Gale in this movie that I was kind of like, they didn't have to make that choice, but I could see why they made it. So it kind of, she has a choice. Kirby has a progression. When we see Kirby back in the movie for the first time in a long time, she's got a nice arc and some duality as well, and I like that also. So progression in characters, again, couldn't be happier with those things. Callbacks. There are so many in-references and in-jokes and things, and usually Scream is known for the metaverse, they're known for the callbacks, but that usually is callbacks to other films, and this movie has those too. There are a lot of in-jokes to other movies and stuff like that. You get a lot of famous slashers in the 80s and 90s and all that stuff. You get all the things we come to know and love about Scream, but we also get all the callbacks to the original movies. You've seen in the trailers, if you've watched the trailers, there's a particular location and scene that's like, wow, that's a lot of in-references and a lot of callbacks right there. And we get those in this movie. And so Scream, while it references other movies, doesn't usually call back on itself too much, except for with reveals. And in this movie, you get callbacks all throughout. You get clothing, you get lines, you get references to survivors and killers, and there are so many Easter eggs and in-jokes and things for the fans in this. There's so much fan service in a good way that feels like it makes sense for why they're in there. So the callbacks span a wider stretch than they usually do in the Scream movies, and I like that. I gave Kirby her own positive here because it's great to see Kirby. Hayden Panettiere is a national treasure. I love Hayden Panettiere. The Kirby character is so great, strong and funny, and fits right in with our two main final girls, so to speak, Jenna Ortega and Melissa Barrera. In a movie without Sidney Prescott, we really needed to have, Gale do something strong and Kirby do something strong, and those two in particular have Kirby's presence throughout is like a nice uplifting thing there, where she brings some levity and brings some strength that you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Courtney Cox's character has a really nice monologue in there and does some referencing to the past, ties up a couple loose ends, makes a couple in references for the audience, and has a really nice, almost an homage, a moment to really shine more than she has in a long time. And I love what Courtney Cox did here too. So Kirby and Courtney both get positives from me. Characters in general, we already talked about. Gore. This is the goriest Scream movie of all time, I think. Of course, we know Billy gets pretty gory in the first one. There's moments. This thing feels pretty gory. It feels like all the kills are pretty unabashed. One of my favorite kills of the entire franchise. Sorry, mouth. Favorite kills of the entire franchise, one of them is in this movie. There's a really gruesome kill that you're like, oh my god, that is amazing. And some of the other ones, even just the basic stabs, kind of the old Scream formula, they linger and last for quite a while. This movie is praising itself in its gore, and it's reveling and taking moments to sink and sit in its gore in a way that Scream usually doesn't. And I think it's a really positive thing here. I will say for negatives, it's not all great. I will say the intro was, I think, my least favorite intro so far in the 6 now Scream movies. I think it's the weakest intro, not because of the acting choices or the killing choices or whatever happens in the intro that I won't spoil, but I think it doesn't feel necessarily like Scream. It gets drug out quite a bit, and they went a direction that I didn't really like them going. I had a fear about where the movie could go based on a couple of trailers. I saw a couple fan theories, and I went, I really hope they don't go this route. I'm not going to like this if they do. And they kind of started to go that route early on. It gets itself back on track, but I went, the intro kind of went really long and kind of predictable, and I don't like where it's going, and thankfully it didn't go all the way where I didn't want it to go, if that makes any sense. But the intro started us off a little bit rocky for me, and also led into the first half pacing. Now, granted, I was in a theater where I was sitting in a row with two really loud people, a couple that was like fighting and talking loud and on their phones and dropping things, and didn't have a good fan experience for the first half. They left midway through the film, which really saved my the rest of my viewing experience. So please, if you're in a theater, don't be loud. Don't be that person. It's really annoying. But the first half pacing, I thought, went along with the intro. The intro started a bit slow and weird, and the first half pacing was a little bit slow as well. Nothing against the characters. Good dialogue as always. Well shot as always. But some of the choices felt a little off to me, and it didn't really feel like a Scream movie for the first, I won't say the whole first half, maybe the first fourth of the movie to maybe third or so was a bit off. It really got going once. I won't say who pops in, but once we get one or two callbacks and things happen, it starts to kick into gear. Probably about the 40-minute mark or so. So stick with it. If you don't like how it starts and it's a bit slow for you, it does get better, but it's not a perfect movie. The runtime is 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Jesus, 2 hours and 2 minutes, and it wound up feeling like a pretty easy watch. I really enjoyed it. The runtime didn't hurt it too much, but it did start slow. Where if they would have shaved down 10 or 20 minutes on that first third of the movie, I think would have made it even better. It would have made it an elite movie for me. And it's so it kind of started slow. So I would have shaved off a little bit of time on that first half pacing, but it gets really good for the next 2/3 of the movie. So stick with it. And also, there's a bit of a killer telegraph. I kind of guessed something about the killing situation. I can't give it away because I'm not going to spoil anything. But something about the reveal or reveals at the end, I guessed. I won't say who or what or where or how many or why. I'm not giving any motives away or anything. Motives I thought were good. I enjoyed the motives. I will say that. But the killer telegraph was there. I predicted kind of one of the really big things and big events, and I thought some of that was spoiled by a bit of reaction and dialogue that I thought was kind of obvious to me. Nobody else around me seemed to get it, but I got it pretty quick. So if you're paying super close attention to certain things and you've been here before with these Scream movies, you might be able to guess something about the killer or killers, reveal or reveals at the end. So there is that. I will also say, for those of you guys that like post-credit scenes, there is somewhat of a post-credit scene in this movie, so don't leave early if you like post-credit scenes. But yeah, that was my experience overall. I think this is a better, at first glance, again, I'm just getting home, barely processed, talked about it with my friends that I saw it with, just getting home. So upon first watch and having very little time to think about it, I'm going to give this film overall a 7 out of 10. I'm leaning towards 7 right now. I think it hits me better than Scream 5 did. It's probably still the 4th best in the series for me, and that's just because I really love the first 4 movies. This falls behind the first 4 to me, but is ahead of 5. But I think this one really did a nice job in mixing up the location while not taking away. I think the movie runtime was good overall, even though it was a bit slow at first. But the characters, the connections, the story progressions, the dialogue, the way it was shot, all are really, really good. And if you look at those core new characters, they do a really nice job standing out. And I feel like everyone gets a moment in this movie to shine. And it feels like they've all done something to deserve those moments, if that makes sense. So overall, this is 7 out of 10. I think this is going to wind up in my top 10 of the year. It's the first one of 2023 that I'm ranking that I think is worthy of the top 10. And it's probably going to end up there, somewhere in the top 10. By the end of the year. If you like Scream and you like 5, I think you're going to like 6 even more. And I'm looking forward already because the word is out. This movie, box office grossed over $35 million this opening weekend. The numbers are in. And Scream 7 has been greenlit. All I will say about Scream 7 is, you guys, bring back Sydney. Pay her $20 million for this movie. Do whatever she wants. Pay her for missing 6 and pay her for 7. Pay her whatever she wants to bring her back. Let's end this new trilogy in a really positive way. Thank you for your contribution, Sydney. Thank you to all the main characters in this movie. If you guys have seen this movie, tell me in the comments below what you think. What do you think of my talking points? What do you think of my rating? Did the first half start a little slow to you? Did you guess anything about the reveals? Did you like the characters' connections? Tell me all these things in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these deep dives, and recommend me other new movies to review on this channel as well. Until next time, Ghostface and I ask you, what's your favorite scary movie? We hope it's Scream, and we'll see you soon.